Hello students, welcome to this module on complex analysis. Okay, this is going to be the last module on the subject of on the topic of complex analysis, which is part of the course CHE 641 at IIT Kanpur. And in this module, what I'm going to do is to show you how Laplace inversion is affected using the method of contour integration. And I'm going to show you some examples, right? And that will with this we will end complex analysis, and in the next module we will move on to linear algebra. Now I'm going to discuss Laplace transforms in some detail as we go along, but for now just understand that Laplace transform is a method that is used to solve ordinary differential equations, especially initial value problems. Okay, initial value problems are such that you prescribe the value of the function at some time t equal to 0 as 0, and then you want to find what is the nature of the function for time t greater than 0. That is the usual initial value problem. Okay, now so we are interested in finding this function f of t. Okay, so that is the objective of we are interested in finding this function f of t. Okay, now t is usually time because that is the usual independent variable in ordinary differential equations, and here s is called the Laplace variable and it can be complex. T is usually real, time is a real variable, whereas s can be complex. Okay, now the Laplace transform of f of t is called f of s, capital F of s. Okay, and that is defined like this. Suppose I know this function. If f of t is known, then I multiply it by e to the minus st and then integrate over t from 0 to infinity. In this expression, t is a real integration variable, whereas s is a fixed parameter. It can be complex in general. So here I am assuming that f of t is known, and the goal is to find the Laplace transform f of s. Usually what will happen is we will not know f of t. Instead we will try to solve for f of s. Okay, and then you want to find f of t. That is called the inverse Laplace transform. Here f of s is known. Okay, here f of s is known, whereas you are interested in finding f of t. Okay, that is the unknown in this kind of problems. Okay, usually this is what you will land up in solution of ordinary differential equations. You will somehow get an expression for f of s which looks like a polynomial or something, and you want to find f of t. Okay, here t is a fixed parameter. You give me a time, and then I'll tell you what is the value of the function f using this integral. Here s becomes an integration variable, and there is a factor of 1 over 2 pi I. I will explain how this comes about a little later when I do linear algebra, but right now you take it that this is the definition of inverse Laplace transform, because the idea is to show how to calculate this integral using residue theory. Now note that s is in general complex. It's the integration variable. It goes from sigma naught minus I omega to sigma naught plus I omega, where omega goes to infinity. Basically, if you look at the complex plane for s, the line of this integration, of the inverse transform goes from sigma naught. The real part of that variable is constant at sigma naught. It goes from sigma naught minus I infinity all the way up to, so this is the line of integration. You are walking all the way from sigma naught minus I infinity to sigma naught plus I infinity. This is the line of integration of the inverse transform. But the key idea is we don't want to use the line integral. We want to use a contour integral. Okay, so the idea is to convert this line integral to a closed contour integral. So you want to, the key is of course to convert this integral cleverly to an integral over a closed contour. Okay, and then use the theory of residues. Now we are interested in finding the value of the function f of t for t greater than 0. For t greater than 0, if you look at this integral, you have you have e to the st times f of s. So let's look at e to the st. S is a complex variable with real part sr and imaginary part si, right? E to the st is written as e to the srt times e to the I sit. Now if you are converting this integral to a closed contour, for t greater than 0 you should close the contour to the left of this line, okay, because in this part here sr is negative, because here on this side sr is positive, on this side sr is negative. So this will decay negligibly, okay, exponentially decay as you go further and further away in the left half of the plane, complex plane. So you would choose the contour like this, close the contour like this. Now how will you choose sigma? Where should you put this sigma? We will put sigma naught, we will choose sigma naught in such a manner that all the poles of this function f of s, remember you had this function f of s, right? This f of x will typically have some poles, okay. Now these are the poles that are marked in red crosses here. I will place my sigma naught in such a manner that, okay, all the poles of f of s lies to the left of this line, okay. Now you can ask the question, so this is just repeating what I just said, choose sigma naught such that all the singularities or poles are to the left of the sr is equal to sigma naught line. What happens for t less than 0? Remember all the poles are here. This is your sigma naught. For t less than 0 you have to close the contour like this in the other way, because t is negative now, t is less than 0, okay, and therefore this part will decay only if your sr is positive on this side of the complex plane. But if you take this contour, there are no poles inside this contour, so if I integrate over this contour I will get f of t to be 0. So this is what we wanted. We want the function f of t to be 0 for t less than or equal to 0, and it should be non-zero for t greater than 0. This is the characteristic of typical initial value problem, okay, right? So that is satisfied by naturally closing the contour to the right for t less than 0 and to the left for t greater than 0, and you choose the contour such that it encloses all the poles of the function f of s. Okay, now so we showed that e to the st decays along this semicircle, but what about f of s? Because after all we are integrating f of s e to the st, right, over this entire contour. Remember, f of s will typically, if you remember your process dynamics and control, where you are trying to solve ordinary differential equations, f of s will be a ratio of two polynomials. For physically realizable systems, usually the degree of the numerator is less than the degree of the denominator. That means that the f of s is a ratio of two polynomials, okay. The degree of this is higher than the degree of this. So if I write f of s, if I write s as capital R e to the I theta to denote this large semicircle, because the degree of the denominator is large, f of s will go as 1 over r to the some higher power, and this will go to 0 as r goes to infinity. Okay, this 1 over r or r to the power will go to 0 as capital R goes to infinity in the semicircular contour. Okay, so therefore we can safely say that this is what we wanted. This is the line integral over that line, over this line. This is sigma naught minus I omega and sigma naught plus I omega, right? Now this line integral is now reduced to this contour integral. Now this contour integral using residue theorem is 2 pi I times the sum of residues of e to the st times f of s inside that contour. Now this contour is traditionally known as the first Bromwich contour. Okay, the Laplace inversion is said to be done using the first Bromwich contour. So we are interested in the Laplace inversion. F of t is defined as 1 over 2 pi I, right? If you have 1 over 2 pi I, then that will multiply. See, so far I have not accounted for this 1 over 2 pi I, right? This 1 over 2 pi I is there, and it will multiply, it is getting multiplied by 2 pi I. These 2 pi I's will cancel out to give simply the inverse Laplace transform of f of s is f of t is simply the summation over the Bromwich contour of all the residues of e to the st times f of s. Okay, so you have to find the residue, first find the poles and then find the residue of e to the st f of s. Okay, so let's look at some examples of inverting Laplace transforms. Suppose I had f of s is 1 over s plus 1 times 1 over s plus 2. There are two poles, you will agree, at s is equal to minus 1 and at s equal to minus 2. Now we have to find the residues. What is the residue of e to the st times f of s as s is equal to minus 1? You have to multiply this function by s plus 1, it is s minus minus 1, which is s plus 1, times f of s times e to the st evaluated at s is equal to minus 1. If you do this, this will cancel out, s plus 1 will cancel out with this. If we put s is equal to minus 1, this will give you a factor of 1. If I put s equal to minus 1 here, I get a factor of minus t, so I'll get e to the minus t. Similarly, if I find the residue of e to the st f of s at s is equal to minus 2, again I'll have to now multiply it by s plus 2. The s plus 2 will cancel this s plus 2. If I put minus 2, s is equal to minus 2, I'll get a factor of minus 1, which is what is here. And then if I put s is equal to minus 2, I get e to the minus 2t. So the inverse transform of f of s is simply the sum of all the residues, which is e to the minus t minus e to the minus 2t. Okay, it's that simple, finding the inverse, once you understand the technique of complex or contour integration. Let's now look at a slightly more complicated function. F of s is s squared, 1 over s squared times s plus 1 the whole squared. There are two second order poles. Why are the second order? You have s squared and s plus 1 whole squared at s is equal to 0 and s is equal to 1. Okay. Now what are the residues? Now if you know the earlier formula that we wrote down for higher order poles, how to find the residue for higher order poles, you have to take the first derivative e to the st. Now you have to multiply it by s squared if you want to find the residue at x is equal to 0. The s squared will cancel this 1 over s squared, right? And then you simply are left with 1 over s plus 1 the whole squared. This has to be evaluated at s is equal to 0. So you have to differentiate by parts. Right, you have to first keep this constant and then keep this constant and differentiate this, and then keep this constant and differentiate this, and evaluate at s is equal to 0. The residue at s is equal to 0 will turn out to be t minus 2. If I similarly do the exercise for s is equal to minus 1, I have to differentiate, I have to multiply by s plus 1 the whole squared. That will cancel out this s plus 1 the whole squared. I'm left with e to the st by s squared evaluated at s derivative of this evaluated at s is equal to minus 1. I get this, the residue to be this. Okay, so the Laplace inversion of 1 over s squared times 1 over s plus 2 the whole squared is simply this. If I put t equal to 0, you will find that this is 0, this is minus 2, this is plus 2, and then this is 1. So this will actually give me 0. Okay, this is what we want. Let's do one final example. I want to say find the inverse transform of 1 over root s. Now, because of this square root, s is equal to 0 is a branch point. So whenever I choose the contour, I should avoid the branch point. So I want this integral, I want to close the contour. Previously I closed like this, but now I have a branch point. So I walk like this, take a small detour, a tiny circle, and then walk like this in the opposite direction, and then close the contour. Okay. Now, because you are clear what the integrand is, it is e to the st by root s. This has no poles within this, because you have tried to come around the branch cut. There are no poles. So this path is called the second Bromwich contour. If you have a branch cut, the contour is now taken in such a manner that you are avoiding the branch cut. It's called the second Bromwich contour. Because there are no poles, the residue theorem will say that the integral of the contour integral about this cross contour of the second Bromwich path or second Bromwich contour is 0. Now this contour is comprised of various pieces AB, BCD, DG, and then integral over this tiny circle epsilon of radius epsilon, HF in the opposite direction, and then FEA, and then the original path that we are interested in. We are interested in, remember, AB. Okay, so I am splitting all this. Now this is 0 by residue theorem. This is 0 by residue theorem because there are no poles within the contour BR2, the second Bromwich path. Now integral over BCD, the bigger semicircle, is 0 for the same reason, because we have chosen such that it's exponentially decaying because of this path. DG we will come to in a minute. Integral over the tiny circle will go to 0 because it will be proportional to root epsilon or something, and therefore it is so there is a ds here. Okay, therefore this will be 0. Integral over HF is non-zero, we'll come to that. Similarly FE A is also 0. And finally you are left with integral over AB, the line AB, which is what you are interested in. We want this. This is the inverse Laplace transform, or the inverse Laplace transform is 1 over 2 pi I times this. So we are left with this integral. We want this integral. If you take this to the other side, this will become minus dg. If you take this to the other side, you will get minus hf. So that's what I have written here. So let's look at dg. dg is just a line just above the real axis, in the negative real axis, stretching from minus infinity to 0. So the path, so s is r e to the I pi, because the argument of s is pi, so it's r e to the I pi, so it's minus r, e to the I pi is cos pi plus I sin pi. Root s is root r, r is always real, remember, it's e to the I pi by 2, e to the I pi by 2 is simply I, so it's I root r. So integral over dg e to the st 1 over s 1 over root s ds is minus infinity to 0, because you are going from here to here in that direction, minus infinity to 0, and e to the st becomes e to the minus rt, ds becomes minus dr from this expression, and 1 over root s becomes 1 over I root r from here. That's what I've written here. Now if I do this, I get minus I, and then I flip the range of integral and then take a minus sign and so on and do the simplification. I'll get e to the minus rt, r to the minus half dr. Now along HF, the opposite direction, you're going from 0 to minus infinity. The argument is minus pi, right? It's s is r e to the minus I pi, so it's minus r, same, but root s is r to the half e to the minus I pi by 2. Now it becomes minus I root r. Remember, root s here was plus I root r, here it is minus I root r. Why are they different? Because they are on either side of the branch cut, so obviously they will be different. So integral over HF, after you are going from 0 to minus infinity, and then you use s is equal to minus r and so on, you will get this. Okay, so finally the integral that we are after is this minus this. Okay, so there are already minus signs here, so they are both are identical. Okay, after all that, it's become identical. There is a minus sign here, there is a minus sign here. That will become plus because you have taken it to the other side. Okay, you have minus, there is one more minus here, so you have plus 2i integral 0 to infinity e to the minus rt by root r dr. Okay, but we are interested in the Laplace inverse transform is given by 1 over 2 pi I times this, so that 1 over 2 pi I should be multiplied by this 2i 0 to infinity e to the minus rt 1 over root r dr. To solve this, you should let rt is equal to beta squared and then do this integral. First of all, you note that this 2i will cancel, get cancelled out. Okay, and then so you will have right, and once you do this integral, you will get root. Okay, so the 2i gets cancelled, so this 2 goes away. I'm sorry, this is 1. So there is let's neglect this. So this is related to what is called the error function. For those of you who have done transport phenomena, you'll be familiar. Otherwise you can just take it as one root pi. You don't worry about how to evaluate this right now. So this root pi will cancel one root pi here to give 1 over square root of pi t. So the Laplace inversion of 1 over root s is 1 over square root of pi t. So this is how one evaluates Laplace transform, inverse Laplace transform of various functions. There you can also use this trick for Fourier transforms, inverting Fourier transform, that is. So many times you may have in Fourier transforms, the key thing is you will find that you will have to integrate between a variable k that ranges from minus infinity to infinity or 0 to infinity. So here again k is a real variable. So you are here, this is k. Typically you are interested in integrating over the real axis, but then you want to convert it to a contour integral. So you will go around and you have to choose whether it is above or below based on whether the contribution from this part should go to 0. And then if there will be some poles, sorry about this, there will be some poles inside, and that will give rise to the contribution to this residue using the residue theorem. And then you can find the value of the integral between minus infinity to plus infinity in k. Okay, so this is called the inverse Fourier transform. Here there is no special trick or special contour like the first or second Bromwich contours. Usually things are fairly straightforward. Okay, and you, based on the techniques that we discussed in the last module, you can invert Fourier transforms as well. Okay, so I'll stop here, students, and I will start in the next module a new topic on linear algebra. Right now this is the end of complex analysis and complex numbers for this part of the course. We will return to Fourier and Laplace transforms, the fundamentals behind Fourier and Laplace transforms, in future modules. Right now it is only about how to evaluate these integrals. Okay, so I'll stop here, and we will again start a new topic in the next module.